Okay, bows and bow ties. So, sorry, I just finished eating this bagel. And, obviously bagels are full of carbs. And I had a little bit of butter and jelly on it. So that means that there were more carbs. And I haven't had one in a while. And it was so good. And I don't know if it's because I was just missing it or if it was really good. But I devoured it. And so I'm sure shortly, when the carbs and the sugar hit me, I will be on 10. Let's get on into it. So the last few days I've been talking about um, just I think like singleness, being married, trad wise. That's probably been going over the last couple of weeks. But something had sparked my memory this morning. I figured I'd get on here and talk about. I observed young people on the job and what the dating scene looks like. Now, normally people don't try to talk to people from work, but this was really interesting. I may have spoken about this before. I watched an entitled young man about maybe, I'm going to guess 28. I think he's like 28 or 29. And the girl, the woman, was 24, if I remember correctly. And I thought it was interesting how he came off as very wannabe alpha male, and she came off as almost like, I don't want to say like hardcore feminist, but I think she was a cute young lady, a nice young lady. I would venture to say a pretty lady, right? Um, she graduated from Cal Poly, I think. I can't remember. I think it was Cal Poly. So she's here on the East Coast from California. So she has just a different collection of experiences, a different everything. And she made it clear she was content to be home by herself. Um, she was not interested in ever having children, and she would go out on dates occasionally. And so I would watch this guy who clearly had a thing for her, to the point that it was like he was so thirsty, you could smell the desperation. He wasn't a bad looking guy. I mean, he was kind of like a geek, but not really. But he had a decent physique. He was tall. He was just overly psycho. He was like it was like almost like I am man, right? And he desperately wanted to get her attention. I'm not waiting for this light. I'm gonna have to bypass this whole situation here and go down a back way instead of fooling with getting on the major road. Anyway, to watch this young man uh basically stalk her at work, stalk her outside of work, it was to the point that it was creepy. And the interesting thing about it was the more she made it clear that she was not interested in this man, the more obsessed he was. He started getting rude. He was just doing too much. To the point it was uncomfortable for me because I would watch him, he would be near me trying to mac this woman down on work, to the point where I'm like, Cat, like literally she does not want you. And the thing that I was thinking about was how dating is just so messed up now. It's all messed up because no one knows how to talk to each other. And so when I think about that, now this couple, they weren't a couple, but these were two young white individuals. And it got me thinking about how dating just across the board is messed up. Because it's not the first time I've heard something like that. Uh, he literally, it reminds me of like those weirdo dudes who are always on these podcasts. I want this, I want that. The woman doesn't go out that much because she's content to be at home. She has her home hobbies. She has her home shows that she likes to watch. Like she just is a homebody. For her birthday, she took herself away for the weekend and got like this, I don't know, she took some sort of weekend package. That dude was trying to find out where she was. It's psycho. But she treated herself nicely for her birthday. This is the interesting thing. So when you listen to people now, I'm talking about the men for a second, talking about these women are just lonely. And I'm thinking about this young lady who was 24 years old. She didn't want to be bothered. She made it clear she was going to go away. She wanted to have a weekend alone. She had her weekend planned down to like her food, her coffee, the shows that she wanted to watch, her bubble bath. Like she was treating herself. She might be 25 now. She was treating herself to this weekend extravaganza. And this young man was so upset. It was in an area where you can go skiing. Okay. He wanted to teach her how to ski. She was like, I am not interested in all this stuff. And he wound up saying, you're such a bee and all this other stuff. And I was like, whoa, this is happening. And I think the thing is, when I think about these men out here, they claim they want one thing. And I'm like, it's not true. Because this woman happened to be attractive. She was educated. She worked for herself. She wanted to treat herself nicely. And he couldn't stand that she was willing to do that without him. She didn't need him for that. The only time, like, so when she would go out and date stuff like that, but she didn't want to date him. And in his mind, he felt like I'm a decent looking guy. I'm smart. I have a decent job. I can do these things. Like, you should just want me. And I look at the dating scene, and I'm just sitting here thinking, like, this is why one of the reasons why, like, women are not dating. Women are not dating. Let me rephrase that. They are dating, but they're so much more selective now. I just want to make sure I clear that up. Because it wasn't like she didn't ever go out on dates. She wasn't pressed. This young lady had her own things that she liked to do. And she was not interested in anyone trying to enter that space at that point in time. Like, she wasn't pressed. She's young. She was living life the way she wanted to, trying to understand what's going on in her career and stuff like that. And I guess men are having a hard time understanding that. And they're like, well, that's why you're going to be lonely with your cats. And she's like, but I'm alone now and I like being alone. I don't want to be with a whole bunch of people. I most certainly am not interested in having any children. And he could not stand the fact that she would say these things. She's like, I'm not having kids. Anyway, getting back to all of this, I'm thinking about how women are done. A lot of women are done. I would say men too. It makes sense that the population is falling, right? We're not replenishing, we're not keeping up with the birth rate. And it's worldwide. So although being that I'm a black, oftentimes I'm speaking with a level of specificity towards black women, I'm seeing this play out in other areas. I'm just saying. I see and hear from people all the time and they're like, I don't want to have children. Especially, if you are in the workforce. Maybe there's a reason, maybe they wanted to at one point, but then it just didn't work out. With this young lady, she's 24 and she's just like, I have no interest in having kids. I believed her because she barely wanted to date. I mean, she dated, she had a good time, but she was just like, yeah, I'm good. Like, she wanted to go home and watch her shows and whatever things she liked doing when she was home. Like, she had hobbies inside and she was happy. She was working on her master's degree. She was doing things that were meaningful to her. They were meaningful to her. And it wasn't centered around a guy. Now, this is what I would say. To me, was the personification of decentering men. Because whenever she talked, she never took men down. Never. It was more about the things that she wanted to do, and she liked rest. She used to make me giggle because she was like, when I graduated, it was just like I was just so stressed out. Like I never want to be stressed out that much again trying to get my degree, right? Because she, her degree was challenging. I get it. I graduated with an engineering degree, and I was like, never again. So when I got my master's degree, it was not in engineering. So when she would talk, I found her to be interesting. Now she was like on some other kind of stuff, you know. I think her main thing was she, as a young lady, was not pressed to be in a relationship with a man. Although she dated, it wasn't like a thing for her. Probably because she was an attractive young lady, so it wasn't like she couldn't garner the male gaze. But she definitely just the things that she talked about doing and where she wanted to be just never centered around at all. At all. She literally was just like, okay, so I totally want to catch this so and so. I forgot, what did she do one time? And somehow she came back with a plant. She did something over the weekend, came back with one of those snake plants or whatever it was. It was like she would do these things and talk about her weekend and some local things she enjoyed that was so entertaining to her. You want to know what else she told me? She was telling me that when she graduated, like many of her peers, it was all about like how much money they can make. And she told me when she graduated, for her, she could have gone to like the Googles and stuff like that, right? She said, with many of these companies, it had to be something else. Like she's like, just some of them were just not. She didn't like the direction of the company. Like she was really very like in tune with like what you believe in. A lot of young people are like, what do you support? What do you believe in? Like it was just like for her, like some of those things just didn't rest with her soul. So she chose her job based on different criteria. You could definitely tell she was like a thinking kind of woman, very introspective. You know, I found her to be actually kind of interesting. But the man that would be stalking her, and everybody would see what it was. He couldn't handle it. Like, how dare she not be into me? How dare she not want to spend time with a guy? How dare she go spend time alone on the weekends? How dare she say these things and basically have this autonomy over herself? So I think this is part of the reason why when I look at, now this is just one example. I look at how young people are dating. There's another instance, I think I did do a video on this, where I saw a young couple in high school where they were near the track. So my daughter was practicing. She had a lacrosse practice, but there were some high school kids that were nearby. I don't know why they were out and about, but they were doing something. And I remember looking over, and this young lady looked like she was under some sort of duress. And I walked over because there was multiple guys. And I remember going over there, and I said, hey, y'all need to cut it out. I said, look, if you guys want to engage in this kind of crazy behavior, you need to go somewhere else. And I'm like asking her, are you okay? And they didn't want to like talk at first. I said, you do understand that out of these parents, we have an undercover police officer, which was true. Actually, it was a DEA person, but that's neither here nor there. I was like, you got an undercover officer, right? You know they already peeped you, right? And it was true. And so then her eyes got big. I was like, yeah, you don't even know who you're around. And some of the stuff that you're doing, do you not know that these parents are sitting there talking about it? Where I was going with it was I was watching this young girl. I, I, it looked like she was in an abusive relationship. And They were making such a commotion. And I was just kind of like, please take that away from here. And if you need help, like I was trying to see like where her hat was. And I was watching the interaction. I don't know what this girl's home life was, but she clearly was desperate for the attention of her boyfriend and his friends. That's what it sounded like. And I shouldn't bring your race, but this was a young white girl in a relationship with I'm going to assume he was a biracial, like a black and white kid. I don't know. He was being very aggressive, kept grabbing her, the way he was talking to her. And I was just kind of like, when you have people in these relationships and people want to wield their power over other people because maybe they don't feel like they have power at home. And I know that's like a terrible stereotype, but I was watching this go down and I was just like, people don't know how to talk to each other. People don't have any self esteem. Everyone's aggressive. I'm like, that's not how relationships are supposed to be. That's not how you're supposed to engage with each other, right? Watching the way these young people talk to each other and treat each other, I can see why everybody has mentally checked out. I wouldn't want to be out here dating. Now, granted, that's such a small cross section, so I don't want to treat that as if that's like, the standard. But I was watching a lot of this stuff goes down. I was like, this is how men are treating women out here, and women are putting up with it. Anyway, I just wanted to get that off my chest. It was like a random couple of thoughts. I'm going to be honest, I'm glad that I don't have to deal with it because I would choose myself too. The difference, though, is a lot of these women who are choosing themselves, they're going on and on and on about men instead of just choosing themselves and figuring out what makes them happy. They need to talk to this young 25-year-old woman who was focused on keeping herself happy. She wasn't focused on pleasing men. All right. So I'm going to get off of here because it probably wasn't that interesting of a video anyway. And I don't have anything else to say. Have a good one.